To charging at the moment.
And now we are officially live, Aneeqah. Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. Let me press go live on Instagram because last week we couldn't go live on Instagram for some unknown reason. For those that are joining us from YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn, thank you for being here. And please don't hesitate to engage and be as interactive as you always are. Shahid, thank you for being so eager and at the same time got us thinking, are we live and having our fat chats behind the scenes, not knowing that we are actually live, but we weren't. And so, without further ado, I'm going to introduce what we're talking about today. I themed it as self awareness being a superpower, but we're going to explore how cultivating self awareness, mindfulness, and conscious habits can transform not just our own lives, but the environments around us. Aneeqah is going to share some practical insights to help you grow from the inside out and embrace your fullest potential. Just a little bit about her whilst we're waiting for Jamila to join. I'll read her bio. An early childhood development specialist, school leader, and holistic practitioner. That's a mouthful in and of itself, and we're going to hear how she got to that journey soon. Over a decade of experience in education, mentorship, and personal development. She serves as the director currently of a preschool and is deeply passionate about conscious education, child behavior, and supporting both teachers and parents in creating nurturing environments where children can thrive. She's the founder of Phoenix Evolution Life Academy, a company dedicated to education, healing, and transformation. Through this platform, she offers one on one coaching, trauma informed guidance, and holistic workshops that support individuals at every stage of life in reconnecting with their authentic selves and realizing their full potential. Her multidisciplinary background spans public relations, finance, counseling, and psychology, and she's currently completing a social science degree. Her unique approach integrates energy healing, nervous system regulation, mindfulness, and behavior science, always grounded in a deep commitment to human connection, self mastery, and conscious living. As a qualified facilitator, she leads a variety of workshops focused on self development and holistic growth, continuing to walk alongside individuals and families on their healing journey. So, without further ado, I mean, Aneeqah is a powerhouse of a woman that I have been blessed to cross paths with in what we call our sacred sisterhood. And we were both on our healing journeys and just continuously exploring and being curious about how to take care of ourselves to better lead and support others on their journey. So, welcome, Aneeqah. It's the second time around you on, but we are very excited to hear this beautiful journey, how you got to get to this place.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, Anisa. It's lovely to be back. I'm looking forward to our talk this afternoon and sharing some information with our listeners as well. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Yeah, you are quite dear to me, sister. Um, Rooted in our journey together, as you mentioned, when we met at the Sacred Sisterhood. And here we are, sharing the story on a platform to inspire others as well. Because I believe that's basically what we're here to do as human beings, to shine our light and
Absolutely.
shine a way for others and just walk each other home on our journey wherever we are destined to be. So thank you for this
Anika, so I've just got somebody on the Instagram saying that our sound is very poor.
Hmm.
So I am going to do something. Thank you, Au Natural from Toronto on Instagram. She's alerted me to that.
Okay.
Um, Shahid, you listening in from YouTube, are you experiencing the same? Sometimes it is just the platform that might be experiencing it. Anika, are you hearing me clearly though?
Hearing you perfectly fine.
Okay. So my volume is on the loudest. What I
Mine.
think I'm going to try and quickly do from my side, because maybe it is my side, the phone, is I'm going to mute here and I'm going to switch it. I'm going to access StreamYard from my laptop as well. So you'll see me in my alter ego personality on the laptop, not showing, but I'll have my face here so that we can maybe see if that will help resolve the sound issue. So just bear with me. Please do start in the meantime sharing with us where this journey started for you and why you are as passionately inspired to walk others home to their authentic truth while I'm sorting out all the audio stuff.
Okay. Thank you. I'm hoping that everybody will be able to hear me while you're doing that. So it's difficult to actually pinpoint a specific period or point in my life as to how the change came about in this journey of rediscovering my most authentic self. But I would, if I should think of anything at the top of my head, I'm going to say it was my children. It were my children. They inspired me to just become a better human being. And I feel that I was faltering in that area of my life because I was unable to meet their needs. They were calling out for help in different kinds of ways for me to meet their needs, and I didn't have the capacity nor the tools to do that. And I felt completely powerless and helpless, especially during a time when they only had one parent to see to their needs. The reason why I'm saying that is because I had divorced from my father and then become the sole caregiver and financial provider for my four kids at the time when I could barely look after myself emotionally because of the devastating effects of the divorce. Um, that led me to research ways that I could become a better parent, not knowing that becoming a better parent ultimately meant that I needed to become a better human being. And I would think that that's ultimately where the journey started, just trying to be a better parent and the realization that in order to be a better parent, I needed to actually become a better human being. And basically, I think that's where it all started.
You unmute, Anissa.
I thought it was.
Hi, Anika. How are you?
Hi, Jamila. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Lovely to meet you. And my apologies for being late. But Friday afternoons in Johannesburg, you are
Okay.
bound to be stuck in traffic. So it's just been crazy.
Understandable
I'm not sure why Anissa's
from you.
mic is, yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can now.
And is the sound clear and loud enough?
There seems to be a little bit of an echo.
Background. Okay. So I thought
Now,
somebody on Instagram said that there is an issue with the sound. So I'm on my laptop as well as my phone, but now there's a echo between the two devices. I'm going to go off. Please continue, Jamila, with Anika, and then I will quickly sort the audios this side.
Anika, I'm not sure. I missed the first bit of this. So I'm not sure what I just caught a little bit about you wanting to change the person you are because of the role that you're playing as a mom, and that's unbelievable. So many learnings in being a parent. Can you speak to us just a little bit more about it and maybe fill me in on how many kids you have?
Okay, I'll do that. Um, so I have four kids.
Wow.
The eldest is 20 and she just recently married. So that was a huge milestone for her as well as for me. Then I
Mhm.
have a 19-year-old as well as a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old. So quite a handful.
Absolutely.
But it's an absolute joy to have them and interact with them as human beings and get to know them as individual human beings. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, as I mentioned before, because I sort of single handedly raised my kids after the divorce about almost 10 years ago. And it meant that I kind of had to become superhuman in order to give them undivided attention for the individual needs at their different milestones. I had absolutely no idea how to do that. And that's, I guess, how my journey started. So they are well rounded human beings. I'm very happy um, for the growth, especially coming from a place of trauma previously. And yeah, just it's a joy watching them develop into their most authentic self.
Unbelievable. I mean, for me, I'm single mom of one. My son is 27 now, and I promise you, it hasn't been the easiest journey because we want to give our kids the best. And as just being a single mom and the only breadwinner, I just found that my time was just not enough. I mean, there was so much to do. It all had to do outside of yourself. So to get that time for you was something that was really very rare. So I think that I can't imagine how it might have been for you with 4 kids, and how difficult that might have been. But how did you find the time then, um, to delve into consciousness? Because when you have so many other responsibilities, that doesn't seem to be the forefront of putting yourself first and allowing yourself. At that time, I think it looks more like a luxury than anything else for
Absolutely.
you with what you have to deal with. How did you find that time, to allow yourself this gift? I think is the best way to describe it. But something that's absolutely necessary, like you said, you in your role as a mom, in your role as a woman, as a businesswoman. How did you find that time?
To be quite honest, there was no time. Um, for many months after the divorce, there was absolutely no time but to be as present as possible, at least physically, if not emotionally and mentally at that point in time. So, taking care of myself and taking time out was the absolute last thing on my mind. Um, and it carried on like that for a number of months until I think my body actually couldn't handle with the stress of not taking care of myself. At the time, there was no support in terms of guidance to, remind me to go and take a rest or take a break. So it was a spinning wheel, a non-stop spinning wheel, until such time as I mentioned, it felt as if my body couldn't handle the pressure any longer. And I'm going to speak about something that many know about, and some might be curious when I mention the term dark night of the soul. And it just so happened that one evening, after packing 4 lunches in the evening for the following day, because there was no time to do it in the morning to prep the kids to go off to school, I, excuse the sound, I put them all off to bed. They were obviously much younger than what they are now, and went to the bathroom to do the usual routine, which was to cry out of exhaustion and fatigue and numbness, just to wipe the tears away and carry on again right after that. But on this one particular evening, when I went to the bathroom, the tears would just not come. And I just felt this paralyzing sense of not being able to hold even my body on my bone frame. And I just collapsed to the floor. And I just remember calling out for help, but not verbally. It was just in my mind, just calling out for help, and also just this deep sense of knowing that I'm not the one that's responsible or actually able to carry this load by myself. And I kind of have to just surrender all of this to a greater power because it's not within my grasp to be able to do it. And I remember being kind of blacked out and only waking up the following morning in fetal position on the bathroom floor. And I would say that from that point onwards, life just didn't seem the same. There was this sense of serene peacefulness that came over me. And it's almost as if I started seeing the world in a different kind of lens, where things were just a little bit slower. It was as if time was forcing me to kind of not rush as much as I was doing. Of course, I didn't understand at the time what was happening to me. Again, there was no support system, there was no guidance from anyone who was going through similar things that I was going through. So it was a very solo journey, and even trying to understand what had just occurred led me to become curious because I just have a very curious mind by nature. And I started doing research on, what's actually happening with me. And I came across the terminology dark night of the soul and those kinds of things. And yeah, that's basically, as you asked, like, where do you find the time? I started making the time after that, after doing many other things after that particular night occurred in my life, because it literally it halted my whole nervous system. It halted my thinking patterns, even just the rat race that I was in, and it kind of compelled me to start looking at life in a different angle. And that's finally where the understanding of taking care of myself came from. And even with that understanding, it wasn't a natural instinct. I didn't even know how to do it. So I had to go and research, how do I implement taking care of myself as a mother. And then I realized I'm also a female. And then I realized I'm also a human being. So in every facet of my life, I had to find ways of taking care of myself. And it was an ongoing journey after that.
Aneeqah, before I respond to that, are you on? I'm wondering if the feedback is coming from you. Are you using a headphone or headset?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Just do me a favor quickly and just mute on your side.
Uh-huh.
I want to see if it's a StreamYard issue because it's quite bad. Jamila, just speak from your side quickly.
Yeah, I don't hear it any longer. Do
No.
you?
No, I don't hear it anymore. Aneeqah,
Yes.
it's definitely on your side because I've gone off and back on again. So there's a feedback coming back, and it's like an echo along with like I can't even describe it, quite frankly.
Scratching
So maybe you
sound.
need to get closer to the phone, or I don't know if you're on speaker. I'm not sure because the noise is not there anymore.
Okay, it's not. Okay, so I just
No, no.
shifted.
When you mute it, it was no longer there. So speak now. Let's just quickly hear.
Is it fine?
Yeah, now it seems to be okay,
It
actually.
seems okay. I'm going
Yeah.
to ask our Instagram contact lady, Au Natural, please, from Toronto. You alerted us to the noise, so thank you. Let us know if it's gone now completely and if we can hear us clearly. So, Aneeqah, I want to talk more to this dark night of the soul experience because it's very much tied into something which I'm passionate about and always talk about. It's around our hero's journey and where we are being called to accept a quest of some sort. And sometimes we refuse. Well, for the most part, we all actually refuse it because we conditioned to believe we need to do everything by ourselves, or we fear or have doubts, or the inner critic, our inner protagonist says, we can't let the world know what's actually going on behind the scenes. What was it for you when you first refused the call before you actually ended up in that blackout moment? What is it that held you back of accepting that call? And what made you realize that actually you're no longer alone?
Well, Anissa, that's an interesting question because on reflection, I would think that it was the fear of failure, the fear of being perfect or being perceived as imperfect by the world, per se. Um, Always having on a good girl persona, had together persona, especially after devastating divorce. So, yeah, I would say that. And the second part of your question, Anissa, what did you ask?
So, on the one hand, what was the thing that held you back? And the other thing is, when did you realize that you weren't actually alone? And who was by your side in that moment to almost pick you up and say, we've got you?
Yeah, I think it was that very moment I realized that I wasn't, in fact, alone, and I had never ever been alone. Um, the sensation that came with being on that floor was that of comfort. It was of warmth that filled my entire body, all my cells. I can still remember the feeling up until today. And it was just a sense of you are not alone. You do not have to do this alone. And that sensation has actually never left my being, it's never left my heart space. And every step was taken more intentionally, perhaps not with enough knowledge, tools that I needed in order to make the changes, but just that sensation and that feeling within my being that no matter what happens, I'm not going to be doing it alone. No matter what happens, there's this form of protection that's with me and over me and through me, even, that would allow me to do whatever I needed to do to surrender to the fact that this is not me that can control the situation that I'm in. Yeah.
Aneeqah, tell me, if you could leave one legacy message um, to parents out there, to teachers, to individuals about conscious living, what would that be? And if you could leave that message, that legacy message to those people, and then if you could leave one separately to kids, like your kids, like our kids, what would that be for those two different groups of people?
For parents and teachers, I would say that the world is a mirror. So whatever form of reaction you have, or whatever form of judgment you have towards another human, is actually a mirror. It's something that's being mirrored inside of you. So instead of focusing on the external, normally what we do, we look at other people, we look at the situation. What we should actually be doing is turning that mirror towards ourselves and looking in and becoming curious as to why that particular situation or that particular person has triggered us to the point where we are having some sort of reaction or response. And if we could approach our parenting that way, knowing that when we are triggered by our child, that it's actually eliciting a response that we should look at within ourselves instead of at the child. In that way, as a parent, you're actually able to hold more space for emotion and their development. The same for the teacher. If the teacher is reactive and triggered by the pupil in a classroom, to use that as an opportunity to look within herself so that she can actually teach the child from a point of view where she's not projecting her triggers onto the situation, which then becomes a cycle. So that's what I would say to
Mm,
teachers. Just approach the world as if everything around you is a mirror, because then you're going to start reflecting the work and the scrutiny to the inside instead of to the outside.
Yeah, that's so
mhm,
so true, but also not a very easy journey, right? Or an easy task to take on, because I think a lot of us do get comfortable in sitting in that victimhood,
Yeah.
that this has happened to me and why has this happened to me. It's very difficult for you to turn that lens and look inward and take responsibility as well, um, for where you are, other than taking the learnings from what you're going through.
Yeah.
So that's amazing advice. I think excellent advice, and I think that's something that we've had to experience as well, Anissa, in our journeys. Um,
yeah.
but the minute that you do that, you see the benefits of it almost immediately. Because it changes who you are, it changes the dynamics of the relationship, of how you're being triggered, by looking at it from a different perspective as to why it's triggering you, and not directing that at the person who's bringing out these feelings within yourself. Um, such insightful and helpful advice and hints that you are giving, because this doesn't come, like you say, just overnight. It comes with a lot of introspective, um, deep work within yourself. But again, I don't think there's a better gift that you can give to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've been blessed to cross paths with Aneeqah, and I know a lot more depth of her story as to why she is this light worker and conscious catalyst for so many. I'm not really sure how much depth you are willing to go to in today's conversation, because I certainly believe it's our stories are not ours to hold on to. And the reason why she is this powerhouse and changing one person, one child, one parent at a time, one teacher at a time. I don't even want to say one, I think multiple from what I've seen in her line of work. I always have the greatest admiration for her because I know the depth of darkness that she had to endure to become this light worker that she is today. And in this multifaceted manner, right? So I'm not sure where and how much you would like to share, Aneeqah, but I invite you nonetheless to, open up this conversation with more depth if you so choose, as to why you've made it your mission to do this light work in this world.
Yeah, Anissa, yeah, I think, I've never been afraid of, of speaking my truth. So they say that the opposite of extreme light is extreme darkness, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. It just means it's coming from a place that the complete opposite of what white represents. It's hurt, it's torment, it's danger, it's everything on the negative side of what you would think light is. So from childhood all the way into young adulthood and then into adulthood, um, there has been nothing but struggles in my life. Learning to adapt to the different environments I was in, surviving the different environments I was in, not understanding the different environments I was in as well. So as a young child, I witnessed my mom being, going through domestic violence. My father left at a very young age, so I experienced not having a father around. My mom then remarrying, and then a very, very toxic relationship where I got my first experience of what narcissistic personality disorder is all about. Obviously, like I said, not understanding it at the time. Throughout that period of time, there was also sexual molestation and sexual abuse, which was another area that I was exposed to. As a young teen, there was trauma of rejection and abandonment by a mother, then who chose to revert back to the sexual abuser. So that was in the midst of my young teen adolescent phase. We know that the present parent is even more needed than at any other time of your young adulthood life. Um, Growing up without any form of guidance or real actual support or anyone who would that a lot of perhaps counseling or just guidance was needed after a childhood like that, and then going into young adulthood still not having any form of support and kind of altering my way through life and trying to figure things out. So I kind of feel that my entire lifespan, from the time that I was born up until the time that I was 35, divorced, was just a floundering of trying to figure out where I am, what do I do with these different scenarios being presented to me all the time, and I actually kind of just winging it as a human being, until such time, of course, that the dark night of the soul occurred. Um, so yeah, it's been a dark journey. I often wonder how much of my personality as it is today had I not gone through, the experiences that had occurred. And studying social sciences now, the biggest theme that comes through is nature versus nurture. And so my quest to try and understand myself has become a little bit saturated with the information shared throughout my studies, which speaks to the fact that there's nature versus nurture. I was always curious to find out whether everything that had occurred in my life had shaped me into this particular person that I am. But now I understand that it takes nature, which is your biology and your genetics and your epigenetics, plus all the different environments that you've been exposed to that ultimately shapes you are as a human being. And I think that curiosity has led me to try and understand other human beings so much better. I have a passion, a deep, deep passion for human beings. I sound really silly, but I have a deep passion for human beings and just understanding us and understanding how we interact with each other and actually observing the potential of different human beings and become passionate about guiding them to actually reach that full potential. And I think that's how the light part of the darkness emerged. Through all of my experiences, it kind of made me curious about who am I as a human being, and what is this way that I function, that where does it come from, and then in that process becoming so much more curious about what's happening around in other human beings as well. And yeah, and just continuing to be a light in their journeys, basically. I hope that sums it up.
Wow, it does more than sum it up. I mean, it just shows, the journey that you've walked along and the incredible strength that you have to be where you are today and to be doing what you're doing. And you've walked like multiple paths. You've from public relations to finance to education and now healing. Can you tell us like how this diversity has shaped who Aneeqah is today and how this might come across to people that you are now meeting for the first time, people who are coming to you for healing?
Yeah, I would say that one of my greatest discoveries about myself, and as I speak about myself, I speak about every other being around me, just being interested in the human being, is that, sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was thinking about something else. Can you just repeat that question quickly?
So like, you gather so many different experiences from your journey, and you've had quite, a like a busy one with the public relations and the finance and all different walks of life. And the thing is that I'm remembering something, and this is a friend of mine who experienced something not too long ago, but he was pulled over for speeding. And of course, he wouldn't give a bribe. And that landed him up in jail, literally in jail for quite a few hours. They had him obviously in a holding cell at one of the police stations. And it was the most traumatic, event for him. And we go through all these different stages in our life, and sometimes, like for me, when I look back at my career in media, it was so toxic, it was so overwhelming for me, and all I could get from it was negative feelings. But at the time, we don't realize what that experience is going to do for us in the future and how it's going to shape who we are actually meant to be. So what I was asking you is that from all of these different professions that you've been in, which is so diverse, how has this shaped you in who you are today and how you are showing up in serving people and the advice that you might give them? Because we might not be in a specific space at a specific time that we want to be in. And that might be everything, it might dominate the way that you're thinking, that you're feeling, but we don't see what lessons come from that and what it's shaping us to become.
Mm-hmm. So I think your last part over there, I think the version of myself, anyone else going through this journey, is that you don't realize that there's a lesson in every experience. You go about, like I said, floundering, and you pick yourself up and you carry on. But what you start realizing afterwards is the art of reflection, because you actually do realize that there's a lesson in every experience that you have, whether it is a professional one, whether it's a romantic one, whatever experience you have, and even your day-to-day natural, relationships that you have or encounters that you have. I started realizing that every single experience that I was being faced with and living through was a lesson about myself that I could take away. So ultimately, my experience in different professions that I work, I started seeing it as my basket of life, where everything that I was collecting along the way was going into my basket of life. But then I started learning the art of reflection, of sifting, to be able to see what stays, what can be refined, and what is actually to my benefit. And if it's to my benefit, it's the benefit of the greater good as well. And that's basically how I started shaping all different experiences into one sort of I'm not going to say melting pot, but into a beautiful salad bowl, and putting only the things that I knew was beneficial to me, mind, body, soul, spirit, whatever the case may be. So the advice that I would basically give others is to do the same, to approach life with curiosity and with openness and with a deep understanding that whatever comes your way, it's a good thing or a bad thing, there is a lesson within that experience that you can sift through in order to have it be beneficial for you or discard it because it doesn't go with you in your salad or your basket of life. Approach life with openness.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, Anissa, you are a serial entrepreneur, right? And the thing is that when you do so many different things, as with me, I mean, I had to find what it was that sat with me well and that made me feel purposeful. And I remember at one point I was seeing someone and he said to me that, you know, you need to just settle down onto one thing because you are a hustler. And it came across so negatively. And for me, I thought, but why are you condemning me for that? You know, yes, I may not have had the textbook definition of how someone's life should turn out to be, but I mean, you know, life happens, and unfortunately we find ourselves in specific situations, or I shouldn't even say unfortunately, because it's your path into experiencing different things which is going to benefit you at a later stage in your life, and not just you but the people that you impact around you. And having had that true experience allows you to be in a space where you can truly and authentically relate to someone. And because you've done your work, you found the steps that you needed to take and the lessons that you've learned needed to learn along the way so that you can then be in servitude of someone else. So I find that a lot of people do this, is that they attach a derogatory um, connotation to someone who wears multiple hats or who changes what they're doing at specific uh, different stages or versions of who they are. And that may not, that's, I think, is very unfair. For me, I feel that at this point, didn't always feel this, but at this point, I see the blessings in the supposedly negative experiences that I've had or the challenges that I've faced, because it allows me at this point to attract different people in my life to whom I can benefit
Yeah.
and be of service to. So I just
So,
wanted to point that one thing out, is that so if you are out there and if you are considered a hustler, it's not anything that's, you know, a derogatory um,
Absolutely not.
label
yeah,
to have.
yeah, like
It
exactly.
should be
I just
something that should be commended, right?
yeah, I just want to add that as a holistic practitioner, we cannot deny, and I'm going to say this, that we are so nuanced as human beings that we cannot fit into one box our entire life doing one thing our entire life. We are created to evolve as humans. We even have different milestones to help us understand ourselves a little bit better beings, from 0 until 7, from 8 until this age, from all the way there's evolution happening throughout the lifespan. So how can we stay static doing one thing? And if we don't tap into what we actually have, the capacity, the tools, the resilience, all of those things, if we kind of minimize our potential to just doing that little one thing, we are never going to tap into the ultimate potential that we as a human being. So I think that's unfair. I think the word I would use very strong would be dumb. It would be dumb to think that we are confined to doing only one thing for the rest of our lives, or even at one time in a space of time. That's just
Yeah,
my
So I want to
absolutely.
respond to that. I want to respond to that because I like that you're so bold to use the word dumb. But before I even respond to it, I just want to come back to your earlier accepting my invitation to share so vulnerably. And I want to say thank you for that. Much gratitude, because it does contextualize why you're doing the work and why you are as passionately inspired to bring light to the world in almost the duality of accepting the darkness as well, and making people understand that this is the polarity of life, and we mustn't hide from the dark or try and suppress the darkness. So I just wanted to come back to that earlier point before I give you feedback on how I receive what you just said earlier on. And then one of the other things you said is the sensation in your body that was as warm as it is, that you've never forgotten. And what that for me has cultivated in you is such a radical self awareness that comes back to what you said, self reflection, right? And being able to reflect more deeply. And then instead of using the word dumb, I may want to reframe it and say, being discerning around what we will accept from those out there. Because if we know, and you love Carl Jung's work probably because you're studying that right now, this shadow side and this negativity, how others project that onto ourselves, is but only the shadow of within themselves. And equally, when we get triggered by if somebody wants to say something negative to us, we may not see the gift and the opportunity in that moment. But if we are being triggered by that person or individual that don't like our light that is shining as brightly as it is, or don't value somebody who is as raw, real, unfiltered, or authentic as we strive to be as light workers in this world, it is more to do about them. And I feel strongly that discernment is what is going to be another superpower for all of us to say, what do we accept? And as you said, what do we take from that in your basket of life? Such a beautiful metaphor that you've used there, Aneeqah. What have I collected in this basket of life, and where might I need to be more discerning? And that ultimately is this hero's journey, because you go into this darkness, in this dark night of the soul, and you will get triggered, and you will be in judgment, and your inner protagonist will be there, and those outside villains and demons and monsters that you have to slay will also be there. But I want to come back now, Aneeqah, and say to you, how have you channeled those type of experiences, knowing that they are par for the course on this path of life? And what will you tell others on how to identify that the trigger is in fact a treasure and a gift? And like you have been able to pick up on that sensation in your body, what else might they need to consider on this path when they get triggered?
yeah. There's so much to unpack on the topic. But I'm going to say that learning about your body, and you mentioned just feeling it in your body, but just learning about your body and understanding that your body is your greatest tool that you have with you wherever you go, no matter what part of your lifespan or developmental stage you are at. Your body is basically the tool to help you recognize when you are uncomfortable in a situation. Your body is also the tool that is used to trigger you with sensations in your body, whether it's sweaty palms, whether it's a headache, whether it's butterflies in the tummy. So if you just learn actually to listen to your body, you're going to realize that the body is telling you something about the external environment. So it's really about you assessing the situation to find out what about your environment is actually making you feel that you are triggered to it. And then, like you said, learning the art of discernment, discerning whether this is you needing to get out of danger or lay down a boundary, or if this is about you being, brought back to a memory from your past that's now surfacing in the future. So it's literally just using your body as a tool to navigate your different environments. Because, like I said, when you are triggered, it's your body that's sending off signals. So become curious to your body, and in order to do that, you have to be a little bit more present and aware that the body is sending signals. Um, I'm not sure if that's helping to, it's a practical tool. And if we just listen to our bodies will tell us what about the situation, the environment is actually triggering us.
Mm. Yeah,
Mm.
no, definitely, definitely does answer it, because we are so not tuned into our bodies. We are so accustomed to the noise and the distractions that life presents us. And I'm not only talking about the external noise, I'm talking about our own inner noise, those thoughts and those emotional states. And very earlier on, you spoke about epigenetics and all of those things that the environments have contributed to how we show up in this world. So before we move on, I just want to say thank you for those that are here. We have quite a bit that have joined us on Instagram. If you have missed the first part of the segment, do go and watch from the start. And Aneeqah has shared some really vulnerable but thought-provoking insights around how we can coexist between light and dark, and how our dark night of the soul experiences are in fact the catalyst for us to become the light workers that we want to show up in this world and cultivate the legacies that we are serving, and not just in judgment of others. Ashif says, from ownership comes commitment. That was his initial comment. Every story is us, Rumi, which is true. You said earlier on the mirror, and that everything is a mirror to us. Shahid said, here's looking you, kid, rock on. I think that was to you, Aneeqah. And Ashif says again, yes, the depth and breadth of life defines us. Ronald, it is so good to see you here, even though it's in the last part of the segment. He said, I got here just in time briefly to say hello to you awesome, beautiful souls. We always love having you here, Ronald. And then he says, don't laugh. I am recently experiencing body awareness. Very valid comment that you're sharing with us here, because people up until their 70s, 80s are living in this unconscious state of awareness. So thank you for your boldness in sharing that. My body got me to my car to my customers. So Aneeqah, what do you want to share about that whole unconsciousness that we're living our lives with, and how do we cultivate this awareness and come into consciousness, other than what you've already shared with us?
I think when people think about consciousness, for those who are not on this journey, as it's too broad. They don't particularly know where to or how to understand, and it's very difficult to explain it because it's an experience. It's not a book that taught from. You actually have to be in the experience yourself to understand fully what it means to you as an individual, because everybody's journey is different. So the sensations that you're feeling and the experiences that you are feeling is completely different. However, we are kind of wired the same as human beings. So what brings us all together and what we can use as a general tool is our body, because we all have that. I would assume we all have that. If not all body parts, we have our body. Inside our body is our nervous system. And so that's why I keep on stressing that the more you get to know yourself as yourself, yourself better inside, but also your biology, that's what's going to be the tool to help you even move towards a more conscious life, because you're going to be intentional about being present in your body to get the awarenesses of what it's trying to tell you. And when it signals to you something and you become curious, you actually start putting some measures in place in order to listen to your body, which then actually leads to the consciousness that we don't even realize we're seeking. So if the consciousness is too broad of a terminology or an experience to understand, it's just really practically start getting to know yourself as a biological human being. And in that way, it's going to signal to you the messages that you need to know about becoming more conscious. And
I
that's
love
for an adult at any age, at absolutely any age.
Love that. That's so true. Aneeqah, I'm not sure if I missed out on this at the beginning of the session, but could you speak to us just a little bit more about the Phoenix Evolution Life Academy and what inspired you to create it, uh, this platform in particular? Um, yeah, I'm just very curious about that.
Yeah. So Phoenix Evolution Life Academy was actually birthed through work that I did at my early childhood development center. So watching or observing in my school every day, I understood that there was something unfolding in front of my eyes that I just couldn't pinpoint. And at the end of every term, we were sending progress reports home. We were tracking the children's growth in all these 7 developmental areas. Um, And we were doing the work at school in terms of how to help them reach their full potential in an educational setting. However, I could see that kids would go home, they would learn a different style of absorbing information. They would have to come back, they'd have to unlearn, then they'll have to reteach. And then it came to my realization that it's not just our duty to be working with the kids and putting the strain on them to develop all their potential in their developmental domains. The work actually mostly needs to come from the parent. And so what I did was I started workshops with my own parents at the preschool that I have, teaching them about the developmental milestones of the child, but also teaching them how they could kind of tweak their parenting style in order to help the child develop in all these developmental domains, which ultimately meant that they had to work on themselves. And that's how the conscious parenting workshops actually developed. Because parents then realized that they had been parented in a particular style and they were kind of just like using the blueprint to parent their child. So in order to help their child reach potential in all the developmental areas, they realized that they needed to start working on their whether it was childhood issues, whether it was parenting issues, whether it was relationship issues. And again, inside these workshops, it was about turning the mirror itself and not focusing on the child anymore, but focusing on how to implement the changes within himself in order to see the result with the kid. And once these workshops were rolled out and the parents actually started implementing all the tools, we could see the change in result at school through the observations on a quarterly basis. It was then rolled out to other preschools as well, to the parents as well as to the leaders, because then the teachers were also brought on board. So we follow a triad approach where it's the learner or the child, it's the parent as well as the teacher, all to be synchronized in order to have the child develop to their fullest potential. So teachers needed to learn to turn the mirror to themselves. Why are they kids? Why are they becoming frustrated when it's just a usual developmental milestone the child is trying to reach? So continuously turning the mirror towards themselves, help them self-develop as beings, as parents, as teachers, and then ultimately hold space for the child's development, allowing the child to actually potential. So this program was taken to a number of preschools where the leaders went through the program, the teachers went through the program, the parents of the schools went through the program, and they were starting to see results. The child was not the one who needed to do all the work. In actual fact, the child should have just been left to be authentic, their most authentic selves, while the parents were themselves and the teacher reparents themselves in order for the child to be shielded by conscious guardians, basically, and
Mm.
to and grow to their fullest potential, which is ultimately what all of us should have had. But now that we understand better, we can do, with the knowledge we have.
Do you
Aneeqah, this
see
is
why I
such
say she
meaningful
is a
work that
powerhouse,
100%. It's
Jamila?
such meaningful work that you are doing, and
Yes.
it changes the course of so many people's lives, to be fortunate enough to be a part of that. And like you say, you know, the responsibility comes from the parent, right? Because this impacts on the well-being and the mental state of the child, you know, causing extreme anxiety, I think, for a lot of kids. And it must be so fulfilling to see these breakthroughs and to have these parents realize this, and then to take on the responsibility of doing the work for themselves in order to benefit the child. But what happens, Aneeqah, when this realization does not happen, right? And you get this parent child who progresses into the next phases of their lives. And here then you have the child who's now become an adult and is full of anxiety. And yes, they may be able to do the work. Do you think that those parents can still come to the realization? Is it something that can still be achieved at that late stage?
Absolutely, it can. And I'm going to speak about my own experience. My understanding of being a better parent and being a conscious parent only arrived when I was 35 years old. My eldest was 13 years old. Already they were experiencing anxiety, post-traumatic stress due to the divorce and things like that. So my journey only started at 35 years old. My realizations only came at a time when my kids were out of the early childhood development phase, they were into adolescence. However, I persevered, and because I persevered, I can see the results. I can see how emotionally intelligent they are. I can see how they can speak about their emotions. I can see how they lay down boundaries. I can see the kinds of relationships they form with other human beings. And I've seen it happening at school here as well, where we have 6-year-olds that are able to communicate their emotions to their teacher. They can ask the teacher, can I have some time out because I need to calm down? And they'll go find a space to do what they need to listen to their body, whether that's to have a crayon and scribble with black, or whether it's to take a puzzle and just, focus on the puzzle, whether it's to get some dough and squeeze. It can be taught at any age. Ultimately, we would hope it can be taught from that age onwards.
Yeah.
But you can have the realization at any change, because whatever happens to you on the inside is going to have an effect on everyone else around you, with relationships, whether it's your own parent, even then you start modeling your older parent. It can cause ripple effects, different generations and at different times. But
Yeah.
there's no saying that it stops at a certain age. It can
Yeah,
happen at
no, I get that completely. And Anisa, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I'm asking this because I know that when I was married, I lived with my in-laws, and there just was a certain pattern of behavior. And I noticed that, especially with a lot of males who have now grown and are in their 40s or 50s or whatever the case, and are fortunate enough to have their parents, they cannot have these conversations. It's almost as you have to accept your parents as how would you approach that so that the person, especially, and I'm talking about a male figure here, um, knows how to broach the conversation. And I don't foresee that they would come to someone and work on it, but at least just to have that conversation to maybe spark some sort of understanding or realization of how to change, if they would be open to change.
There's no clear-cut answer for that question or that statement, because the results can vary all the time. One parent can be completely open to what the son has to say and embrace it completely, and there's forgiveness and there's change and there's the road to recovery and evolving. The other parent might be completely the same parent and say, I'm the parent, you're the child, you're being disrespectful, how dare you do things, So it's entirely up to that particular person to decide where they are in their journey, and also are they at peace with whatever the response is going to be when they decide to have that conversation. So there's no clear-cut answer. You have to feel as an individual that you are ready to take on the responsibility of sitting in front of the parent and trying to repair. Most of the time, it's with the hope that this parent is finally going to see you as a human being and accept you as your authentic self. Um, but there's the chance that it won't happen. So you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
prepared for the moment, and also just have the realization that it isn't actually about the parent accepting you, because that was the infantile need when you were younger, that need for your parent to accept you, to fulfill all your unmet needs. As an adult, we have the capacity to do it for ourselves. And so therefore we have to kind of think about whether we're still seeking the external validation in order to feel whole, or are we still needing to work a little bit more on our journey to feel that sense of wholeness inside without needing the parent to say, you know what, I was wrong all these years I could
Yeah. You know,
Mm.
I,
Aneeqah, I mean, we've reached the end of our segment, and there's so much to talk about. And one thing that keeps on popping up in my head is that whether we're working with children, teachers, parents, this is ultimately about self-leadership. It's cultivating that, which now leads me to another part that we don't have the time to go into, but maybe we could set up another segment and then talk through how do we bring this into the world of work?
mm,
Because this unconscious leadership, by no fault of its own, comes back to the missed infantile needs that were not met. So people
Mm.
show up in the workplace as entitled. So a lot of the work that I do in my environments is that there's a sense of entitlement, but that sense of entitlement cannot only be judged harshly. I feel it is simply because there was generational trauma and cycles that have been repeated. And so the narrative for that individual is, I deserve more and I should be given a chance. It's whatever it is, whether they're operating from victim consciousness, we shouldn't be judging. But there's such a poor level of conscious leaders with the buzzwords are there. You know, the suitcase words are being used: diversity, equity, and inclusion, and civility. But when you really get to the core of the individuals that are reporting into, in inverted commas, leaders, I actually want to call them managers with no judgment. It is simply because they haven't done the inner work. They haven't learned to heal the parts of themselves, reparent the parts of themselves, and the nature versus nurture thing, nurture themselves to a point of knowing how to actually cultivate self leadership, self love, self acceptance, that we are dealing with the toxicity that we are dealing with overall in the conscious leadership realm. So I want to close off today by asking you if there's anything you want to add to that comment, and would you be open to us having maybe a very different segment around cultivating conscious leadership, and then us having that as more a different style to the usual segment that we host, Jamila, but maybe us practically giving our audience the different toolkits and frameworks from all of us on what we applying within our workplaces. So over to
Absolutely.
you, Aneeqah. Any closing
Sorry,
out, or Jamila?
before you go on, Anissa, I think that, because we've already been pre-booked up until a certain date, it's almost
Mm,
a shame that we have to wait this long. And maybe what we should consider doing, Anissa, is maybe do another segment on another day, just to have a
okay,
lot of these our guests who are keen and willing to come back on. But maybe we should do something so that we can hear back from Aneeqah and the likes a lot sooner than waiting until, a spot to
agreed,
next
agreed.
week.
If
Yeah.
capacity allows it, by all means, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So lastly, Aneeqah, from your side, I know we're over time, but in closing, what would you like to share?
I think there was a deep desire from a very young age that to change or to make changes in the world, and I always walked around with this idea that I would be able to change the world in some special way. Um, but then, as I realized, in order to have the world in a better state, I actually have to start making myself much better on the inside. And so I think there's a quote by Rumi that says, "Yesterday I was clever, so I tried to change the world. And today
Yes.
I'm wise, so I'm changing myself." And basically, that's what it's about. I think
That's
that
it.
thing that we've spoken about, the mirror and projecting and interacting with each other and triggers, just when we start doing the work within ourselves, if each individual starts doing the work on themselves, the world will automatically be a better place. Yeah.
I want to thank you, Aneeqah. I mean, Jamila, I know we're 1 hour, 5 minutes already, but anything you want to say in closing?
Just to Anika, thank you so much for today. Your words have been so inspiring. Your work is just groundbreaking, and you've made a difference, and I know that you've made a difference in my life in this hour that we've had the privilege of having you on and just communicating with you and listening to your story. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable, and I really really do hope that we can set up that session so that we may continue this, because like you said, Anissa, it's so important for us to address what's going on in corporate, because you have this wounded a child who's moved through their whole life, and then now is coming into contact with other people, but on a corporate playing field, and so many people are battling, and so many
I
lives
hear
are
you.
being impacted, and it's so important for us to have that conversation with you, and I can't wait to hear what you've got to say about it. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Much, Jamila, for your
Thank you
kind.
to everyone. Go for it, Aneeqah.
Yeah, I'm just thanking Jamila for her kind words and also for having me on the show, for allowing me the opportunity to be here with you guys today.
There is a beautiful comment for you. Phoenix Evolution Academy is essential for all parents, educators, and leaders. The conscious workshops are truly liberating, leading to a profound self awareness and beautiful discussion, ladies. Both comments on Instagram from Aisha, who's also a dear sacred sister. So, on that note, thank you, Aneeqah. We're going to end the live. Stay with us briefly before we go, and then I will end the live on this side as well. We will coordinate a time that's outside of our usual Friday segment. And thank you for everyone for your participation and for being willing to share this space with us. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye everyone.